Welcome back to Wrestling with Horror. My name is Andrew Dreamer. Forget ghosts, forget demons, forget masked slashers, because this time the monster isn't supernatural at all. It's something terrifyingly real, a chimpanzee. And if you know anything about chimpanzees, then you already know that that might somehow be even scarier than, say, Jason Voorhees. The film takes a simple premise and turns it into 90 minutes of escalating panic, violence, and primal chaos. It's basically Cujo with a chimpanzee, and surprisingly, that concept works far better than it has any right to. This is not elevated horror. This is not slow burn psychological grief symbolism. This movie wants to lock you inside a house with an enraged animal and ask one simple question: how long would you survive? So join me as we look at Primate on this episode of Ringside Review. Let's get straight into the tail of the tape for this one. Primate was released in 2026. It stars Johnny Sequoia and was directed by Johannes Roberts. For subgenre, I'm going with creature feature for this one. And lastly, Primate comes in at 1 hour and 29 minutes. Primate feels like a throwback to the kind of brutal, stripped-down creature feature movies that used to dominate late-night cable television and VHS shelves. And I mean that in the best way possible. Those kinds of movies are what I cut my teeth on in the early years of my own horror journey. And I've got to say, I kind of miss those days. The things were just simpler back then. Before we jump into the cage here, be sure to body slam that subscribe button and drop kick the like button as hard as you possibly can so you never miss out on any of the hard-hitting, chill-inducing 5-star matches we have here at WWH. It is bell time though, so grab your popcorn and make your way to your seat. Let's head down to the ring. In this one, we're heading to a remote cliffside home in Hawaii where things go completely off the rails after a family pet chimpanzee becomes infected with rabies. And trust me, this movie wastes absolutely no time setting the tone. We open at the house itself, where a veterinarian named Doug Lambert walks into an outdoor animal enclosure to check on the chimp. Within seconds, he's brutally attacked and the animal tears his face completely off. That's our opening scene. Then the film jumps back about 36 hours earlier to show us how everything spiraled into this chaos. We're introduced to Lucy Pinborough, a college student returning home to Hawaii after years away. She arrives at the airport with her best friend Kate, but Lucy is annoyed to find out that Kate also invited another friend named Hannah along for the trip. While boarding the flight, the girls meet two party-loving college bros named Drew and Brad who immediately attach themselves to the group. Once they land in Hawaii, they meet up with Kate's brother Nick and head to Lucy's family home, which is basically this massive modern mansion built directly into the side of a cliff. We meet Lucy's father Adam, a famous novelist who is deaf and communicates mostly through sign language, as well as Lucy's younger sister Erin, who has clearly got some resentment for Lucy for being gone for so long. But the most important member of the household is Ben, the family's adopted chimpanzee. Ben is incredibly intelligent and communicates using a custom soundboard tablet that was created by Lucy's late mother, who was a linguistics professor before she passed away the previous year. Ben is especially happy when Lucy gives him a teddy bear that she brought home for him. That night, though, things start feeling a little bit off. Ben begins acting strangely, and Adam discovers a dead mongoose inside the enclosure. He also notices that Ben has been bitten by it. Adam decides he'll bring the mongoose to a lab the next morning for testing, but before heading out to a book signing, he asks the vet Doug Lambert to come by and check on Ben. Meanwhile, everyone else is partying by the huge infinity pool overlooking the cliff. And later that night, Lambert arrives to the enclosure to examine Ben, but by this point the infection has fully taken hold. Ben has gone rabid, and he completely mauls Lambert before escaping the enclosure entirely. Later that evening, though, Kate wakes up and notices that Ben is wandering around the property in a dazed, almost zombie-like state. She alerts Lucy, but by the time they look for him, Ben has disappeared. Lucy eventually finds the teddy bear she gave him earlier, only now it's covered in blood. Then the group hears chaos erupting near the pool and discovers Ben acting aggressively toward Nick and Hannah. At first, Lucy and Nick actually manage to calm Ben down, and then they try restraining him with a rope. But that's a huge mistake. Ben suddenly snaps, bites through the ropes, and launches into a violent frenzy. He attacks Erin and bites her leg before the entire group dives into the pool to escape him. Since Ben is terrified of water and can't swim, the survivors are temporarily safe, but they're basically trapped in the pool while Ben stalks them around the perimeter like a predator waiting for his opening. Things get even worse when Ben leaps onto the edge of the cliffside pool. Nick tries to shove him over the side, but Ben overpowers him and throws Nick off the cliff instead. Nick plummets down to the rocks below and dies instantly. The survivors spend the rest of the night stranded in the pool while Ben continues finding ways to injure and terrorize them from outside the water. Eventually, Lucy grabs a large inflatable pool float, giving them a slightly safer place to rest until morning. When they wake up, Ben is nowhere to be seen, so Lucy and Kate decide to sneak back into the house to retrieve a phone, but while searching the living room, Ben suddenly ambushes them. Kate is killed in one of the film's nastiest moments when Ben crushes her head with a rock. At the same time, Adam is still at his book signing when he finally gets the lab results confirming the mongoose tested positive for rabies. Since Hawaii is famously rabies-free, he initially dismisses it as impossible. But when Lucy stops answering his calls, Adam abandons an important film deal meeting and rushes home. Back at the house, Drew and Brad arrive, completely unaware that everyone is being hunted by a rabid chimpanzee. Drew walks straight into Lucy's bedroom where Ben attacks him and tears his fucking jaw completely off. Brad manages to reunite with the girls outside, but Ben ambushes him too and beats him to death with a shovel. Hannah eventually sneaks into the house and manages to grab a smartphone along with some car keys. She runs outside, jumps into a vehicle, and desperately calls 911 for help. But in a terrifying detail, she realizes she grabbed the wrong key fob, and before she can escape, Ben finds the correct key and actually uses it to unlock the car door himself. He drags Hannah out and brutally kills her while the 911 operator listens helplessly on the other end. Eventually, Adam finally makes it back to the house and is, quite frankly, unsure what he's going to find. This has to be my favorite scene in the whole movie, honestly. We get Adam's POV and it's completely silent. He doesn't know that Lucy is trying to warn him and is kind of right behind him. All he sees is a mess and he thinks that the girls threw a party or something like that, but that's when he finds Drew dead, and then Adam then teams up with Lucy and Erin to fight Ben directly. During the struggle, Adam stabs Ben with a shattered wine bottle, and for a moment they believe that the nightmare is finally over. The family embraces, relieved to still be alive, but Ben suddenly attacks Lucy one last time and sends both of them crashing over a balcony. Adam manages to save Lucy, but Ben falls below and ends up being impaled on a broken chair leg, finally killing him for good. The authorities arrive after tracing Hannah's emergency call. Erin is taken to the hospital while Adam and Lucy comfort her, promising she'll never be alone again. But the movie ends on one final creepy note. As police collect Ben's communication soundboard for evidence, one of the officers accidentally presses a button on the tablet and the tablet suddenly says the phrase, "Lucy bad," as we fade out. Now let's move on to the match breakdown portion of our show. The biggest reason that Primate succeeds is because Ben is genuinely terrifying. The film wisely avoids turning him into a goofy CGI cartoon. Instead, much of the performance relies on practical effects, stunt work, and physical movement that give Ben a frightening sense of realism. What makes him so disturbing is that the movie constantly grounds his behavior in reality. Chimpanzees are already capable of extreme violence in real life, which means the film never really has to exaggerate very much to create fear. Ben doesn't feel like a movie monster. He feels like an animal that has completely lost control. That realism creates a very different type of tension than most creature features. There's no magical weakness to exploit, no ancient curse to reverse, just raw survival against something faster and stronger than you. Johannes Roberts has quietly become one of modern horror's most reliable directors when it comes to survival-based tension. Much like his work on 47 Meters Down, Primate thrives on containment and helplessness. The film constantly forces characters into tight spaces where escape feels almost impossible. Hallways become kill zones, bedrooms become traps. Even moments of silence feel dangerous because the audience knows Ben could emerge at any second. Roberts also deserves credit for keeping the runtime lean. At under 90 minutes, the movie wastes almost no time once the horror fully kicks in. It understands exactly what kind of movie it is, and it never really slows down trying to become something more pretentious. And the movie also more than earns its R rating, which is something that I absolutely love. When Ben attacks, the violence is sudden, messy, and deeply uncomfortable. The film avoids stylized, cool horror kills and instead leans into panic and physical destruction. Several attack scenes feel shockingly vicious, specifically because they happen so quickly. There's also an important difference between Primate and many modern slashers. Nobody feels safe. The movie creates legitimate uncertainty about who will survive, which makes the second half far more suspenseful. At times, the film almost feels mean-spirited in the best possible way, like an old-school exploitation thriller designed purely to make audiences squirm. One of the most interesting aspects of Primate is how committed that production team was to making the horror feel physical and grounded in that way. In an era where creature features often drown themselves in weightless CGI, Primate deliberately leans into the practical filmmaking techniques whenever possible. Rather than building an elaborate mythology around creatures, Roberts focuses entirely on suspense, survival, and the terrifying reality of animal unpredictability. The production also made the smart decision to use Hawaii as more than just a backdrop. The massive cliffside house and isolated tropical environment create a strange contrast between paradise and terror. The movie also carries the DNA of classic animal attack films from the 1970s and 80s. You can feel inspirations from exploitation creature features, survival horror, and even slasher filmmaking throughout the structure. In many ways, Primate plays less like a traditional monster movie and more just like a home invasion slasher where the killer just happens to be a chimpanzee. That old school mentality is exactly what gives the movie its identity. And again, the standout spot of this entire match for me is the sequence where Adam arrives back home. It's beautifully shot. The sound design is immaculate. The tension becomes unbearable because the audience just wants this guy to make it out of there alive. We feel for him, and that's important. It's one of the rare modern creature feature sequences that is genuinely heart-racing and dangerous. All of that being said, though, this movie does have some weak spots as well, and some flaws that we need to go over. Several supporting characters exist primarily to become chimpanzee casualties, which means part of the emotional drama can feel a little bit underdeveloped, and I'm talking specifically about Drew and Brad here. Some character decisions are also aggressively stupid, even by horror movie standards. The film's simple premise may also frustrate viewers who are looking for, deeper themes or some more originality. At the end of the day, this really is just a movie about surviving a violent chimpanzee. But honestly, I think that simplicity is part of the appeal. Of course, though, we still have to give this movie a rating. And that being said, let's move on and get to the final bell. Primate works because it understands exactly what horror fans want from a movie like this. Tension, brutality, momentum, and a terrifying central creature. That being said, Primate is going in the upper mid-card. I wrestled with the idea of putting it in the main event, but I want to save that for the truly special movies. The movies that feel like they could change your life. And please don't take that as an insult to this movie, because as of now, it's actually my favorite movie of 2026. It doesn't try to reinvent horror. It doesn't pretend to be smarter than it is. It just locks the audience inside a nightmare and lets the chaos unfold. Most importantly, though, the film taps into something deeply primal. Our fear that nature can turn violent without warning, and that humans are nowhere near as in control as we pretend to be. Now, let me know what you think about Primate in the comments below. Now that we've talked about Primate a little bit, find out my thoughts on House on Haunted Hill, and you can do that by clicking the video that's appearing on your screen now. And remember, in the squared circle of horror, there are no countouts for nightmares. My name is Andrew Dreamer, and this is Wrestling with Horror.